Forum came under severe executive interference, just even the Governors Forum. If you remember the whole controversy as to whether 16 is greater than 19. Indeed, 16 was held at the time to be greater than 19. You will agree with me that a lot of what we're seeing today, and if you recall also, the executive at the time, the national executive, how it besieged the Rivers State Government House. All of this took place in very recent history. You'll agree with me that a lot has changed, at least with respect to that. We are no longer stealing. The government has also taken, and if you recall, in more recent times, significant steps in terms of police reforms, and we hope that these police reforms will come in the future. Under President Buhari, the National Assembly is, in my view, perhaps at its most independent since 1999. These changes are being brought about through democratic processes, and to some extent, despite the tension that must always exist between the executive and the legislature. These changes, all of these changes, are still there, and they're still being made. Unsuccessful attempts have been made in the past to bring about a holistic financial autonomy of the legislature and judiciary in Nigeria. It is, however, under this administration that we have ensured that that financial autonomy has been extended to state judiciary and state houses of assembly. My Lord also appeared to be a bit dissatisfied with the slogan that change begins with the individual. He says instead, and I do agree with him, that the change must also begin with us, that is to say, the executive. But it was the great Mahatma Gandhi who charged us all to be the change that we want to be, we want to see. Any change that we want to see in this world, the great Gandhi charged us to be that change. It is a call to civic responsibility, and it's not an excuse, and I agree entirely. It is not an excuse for leadership to shirk its own responsibilities. But permit me to say that the change in our nation may not be as difficult to see as all that. Clearly, all of what we expect to see is not, we have not seen all we expect to see. But today, if we were to ask our brothers and sisters in the Northeast who watched Boko Haram seize 14 local governments as of 2014 and hoist their flags in 14 different local governments, and they saw schools and major roads closed, and could not even celebrate Sabbath or Christmas for many years, then perhaps you will find that they will say that they have seen no change. If we were to ask the farmers, what the 720,000 farmers who today are enjoying the credit and support and agricultural inputs being made by the Anchor Borrowers Program and getting a more stable supply of fertilizer because of the presidential fertilizer initiative, and also getting it at significantly cheaper prices, perhaps they might say that there has been some change. Or if we were to ask the 500,000 graduates who have been employed under the Empower program, and this Empower program is direct government employment, and they are trained using a tablet such as the one I'm holding in various entrepreneurial skills to be useful to themselves even after the period of their employment. If we were to ask them, perhaps they might say that they've seen some change. If we were to ask the pensioners, the Nigeria Airways staff, Delta Steel Company staff, ex-Biafra police officers, etc., who before now received no pensions after several years of abandonment, perhaps they might say, there is some change. And the petty traders who are getting microcredit from the federal government, many of them, hundreds of thousands, I think 2 million, who are getting direct credit. They were long ignored Nobody ever paid attention to the poorest in the value chain, to the poorest of our people. No one ever paid attention to their welfare. Today, they're getting some credit. They're opening bank accounts on account of the government program. As they might say, but they have seen some change. Or better still, if we were to ask the 9.2 million school children and their parents in 48,000 schools in 26 states nationwide who are eating one meal a day, they will say, not exactly, I see some change. 297,000 indigent Nigerians in 20 states now receiving monthly stipends under the conditional cash transfer program. 297,000 of them. All of those ones, each of them, and their families, and the families that they represent, they would know that there is no change. Ask the contractors who have returned to site since 2016, because our budget for roads has grown 20-fold since then. Ask the artisans and laborers who have found jobs on the many railroad projects and housing projects. There is no state, not a single state. I'm the Minister of World Power and Housing here, is here today. Not a single state in Nigeria is not undergoing, not one state. Is there not a major federal government project today? As things presently stand, it is of course possible to say that politicians have nothing to show for the lessons of the failure of the First and Second Republic, as my Lord has argued. A lot of that impunity has come to define, a lot of the impunity, and I must say respectfully, that a lot of the impunity that has come to define public office in Nigeria in terms of corruption, especially grand corruption, has been sanctioned under this administration. And I say grand corruption because our society has a problem of systemic corruption, a major problem of systemic corruption, affecting all institutions. Grand corruption is that sort of corruption where the executive approves the taking of money directly from the treasury, the stealing of resources directly from the treasury. We experienced this in the past few years. Today, that's no longer the case. Today, we do not have a situation where under a government, $292 million is taken from the treasury in one day, $292 million, and it simply disappears. $292 million, all of the money we are giving to 2 million petty traders is $20 billion. If you look at what that could do, $100 million is $36 billion. Almost $100 billion is what we're talking about, taken and shared. If we had $100 billion to give to our people, this would be a different country. The days of fraudulent oil contracts where $3 billion disappeared and is not paid back. Even as we speak, we're still struggling to get it back. All of these, the days of the disappearance of large sums of money, at least that has stopped. We have stopped grand corruption. We are not talking about where we're able to stop contractual corruption. We haven't even got to that point. And it shows you the extent of the problem. It shows you how big the problem is. But God helping us, our country will be transformed. Our country will change. We will deal with this issue of corruption. And our country will change. The policy of this government of direct procurement, especially with respect to security, has helped a great deal. Security equipment, direct procurement of security has helped a great deal. But then I don't want to dwell on all of that. And all of what we have seen, in the various ways by which we have tried to ensure that the lessons of the past, especially with grand corruption, have been dealt with. These days, the government is achieving far more with We're earning 60% less than the previous government, 60%. And we've spent 2.7 trillion naira on infrastructure, on capital, the largest capital spend in the history of our country. That's why I think it is safe to say that some lessons have been learned. But let me just very quickly go on, as I feel, to say that it is in the area of justice that we have perhaps some of the most important challenges. And when I say justice, I mean even our definition of justice. The truth is that the Nigerian elite sees justice from the point of view of how we, the elite, are treated. So if a member of our company, a member of our group, and when I say our group, I refer to the political, the religious, and the business elite, is detained, we suddenly begin to shout, injustice, injustice. Justice for the majority of our people who are poor, who are dispossessed, has a different definition. And this is why, as a lawyer, I was greatly inspired by the thoughts of Malam Aminu Khan. And I say that I was greatly inspired by his thoughts because he understood what the concept of social justice meant. What is the point of justice? When hundreds, when millions of our people experience the type of poverty that makes it difficult to describe them as human. What is the point of justice? The Indian courts, the Indian Supreme Court, in defining what it is to have the right to life, when the Indian court talks about the right to life, it says that that right to life has been denied if a person does not have access to social welfare, if a person does not have access to health care, to education, that right to life has been denied. That is the view of Malam Khan, that our country must provide for its teeming poor, that justice, especially what the concept of distributed justice, the concepts that underlie the fact that the whole purpose of government and government is to ensure the welfare of people. That is justice. And we must ensure that that form of justice becomes the norm in our nation. Let me again thank and commend my Lord for the lecture. I will look at it again in greater detail now that I have a full copy. I'll look at it in greater detail. I'm still writing my thoughts and send to my Lord. I want to thank you very much for the very kind